Indeed, breaking news from the Middle East. Israel unexpectedly attacked the Qatari capital, Doha. Israel carried out several strikes on the capital of Qatar. The target of these strikes was the Hamas leadership, which, according to preliminary reports, had gathered there for a meeting. The Israel Defense Forces stated, without specifying the region, that they struck the Hamas leadership directly responsible for the attack on Israel on October 7. The operation was carried out jointly with Shabak, the Israeli Security and Counterintelligence Service. But in Qatar, they have already announced that they are now suspending their mediation in negotiations between Israel and Hamas, as they condemn Israel's attack on the country, which they called unprecedented. Saudi Arabia has already expressed its support for Qatar and promises any assistance if Qatar decides to respond. But here, the main question arises: did the United States of America, and in fact Qatar itself, know about the planned attack? Here, some very interesting information appears. My name is Alexei Pichi. Today is September 9th. Let's dive into this topic and analyze everything that's happening. But before we begin, I want to remind you that every day on this YouTube channel, several news analysis segments about events around the world are released, so that you can stay up to date with absolutely all the news. That's why I recommend subscribing to this YouTube channel and liking this episode. In the Israel Defense Forces statement after the attack on Qatar's capital, it says, and I quote, "Before the strike, measures were taken to minimize harm to the civilian population, including the use of high-precision weapons and additional intelligence information." Later, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that this was indeed an Israeli operation. Quote, "Today's actions against the leaders of the terrorist organization Hamas were a completely independent operation by Israel. Israel initiated it, Israel carried it out, and Israel takes full responsibility." And here an important political crossroads emerges. Qatar is an important ally of the United States of America in the Middle East. At the same time, for more than 10 years, it has provided refuge to the political leadership of Hamas and, together with Washington, has played a mediating role in attempts to peacefully resolve the war in the Gaza Strip. A high-ranking source in Hamas told Al Jazeera television that the movement's leaders were indeed attacked in Doha, while discussing United States President Donald Trump's proposal for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. And indeed, just 2 days ago, Trump gave Hamas what he called a final warning. Here is his quote, "I warned Hamas about the consequences of refusing the agreement. This is my final warning. There will not be another." And now, experts link Israel's attack on Qatar to Donald Trump's final warning. And, according to Israel's Channel 12, Trump gave the green light for an operation in the capital of Qatar. According to Channel 12, among the Hamas leaders killed was Khaled Mashal, the leader of the movement's foreign wing, whom Israel had already attempted to assassinate back in 1997 in Jordan. The publication also, The Times of Israel, citing Arab media, reports that in the Hamas headquarters that was struck, the Hamas leader in Gaza, Khalil al-Hayya, was present. He is the main Hamas negotiator and a participant in the ceasefire talks in the Gaza Strip. At the same time, 2 Reuters sources in Hamas claimed that the members of the negotiating group survived. In addition, Zaher Jabarin, the head of the organization in the West Bank, and Muhammad Darwish, the head of the Hamas Shura is the Hamas Council, were present at the headquarters. The reaction of the Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which condemned the Israeli attack, turned out to be interesting and revealing. Quote, "The state of Qatar strongly condemns the cowardly Israeli attack targeting residential buildings where several members of the Hamas Politburo lived in the Qatari capital, Doha." So, in other words, Qatar admitted that yes, the attack was indeed aimed at the location of Hamas militants. The reaction of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who also condemned the Israeli strikes, was even more telling. Quote, "We have just learned about the Israeli attacks in Qatar, a country that plays an extremely positive role in achieving a ceasefire and the release of all hostages. I condemn this blatant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar." The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, supported Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani of Qatar and condemned, quote, the blatant Israeli attack on Qatar. According to the Saudi press agency, bin Salman stated that, quote, the Israeli attack on Qatar is a criminal act and a blatant violation. We are putting all our resources at Qatar's disposal and support Qatar in any measures it takes to protect its security. It is important to note here that this sets a worrying precedent for future peace negotiations and any diplomatic initiatives. It is now necessary to get answers to several key questions at once. Did the United States of America know about this attack in advance? If so, how could they, given this was an attack on Qatar's sovereign territory? This will affect the operations of the largest American air base in Al Udeid. How will this impact the United States' relations with all its Arab allies in the Persian Gulf? If even Qatar, where negotiations between the United States and the Taliban took place before 2021, is no longer a safe place for talks, then where is there such a place at all in the Middle East? So there are a lot of questions here. Nevertheless, the strikes were carried out less than 2 weeks after the chief of staff of the Israeli army promised to strike Hamas leaders abroad. Most of the Hamas leadership is abroad and we will get to them as well, said Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir back on August 31. Did the United States know about the preparations? Most likely, yes, and here we are. Reuters, citing a high-ranking Israeli official, reports that Jerusalem informed the United States in advance about the planned operation. According to Israel's Channel 9, the operation was called Peak of Fire and was personally authorized by United States President Donald Trump. The newspaper Israel Hayom claims that Qatari authorities were also notified, and measures were taken before the strike to minimize harm to the civilian population. Therefore, it can now be assumed that Qatar will not take a very strong stance against the United States since this operation was planned in advance and everyone except Hamas members knew about it. And right after the strike on Qatar, a representative of the Israel Defense Forces released a statement about the evacuation of the entire city of Gaza to a safe area. The leaflet distributed in Gaza says, urgently to all residents of Gaza and those living in all its surroundings, from the old city of Itufa in the east to the sea in the west. The Israel Defense Forces are determined to eliminate Hamas and will operate in the Gaza City area with significant force, as they have throughout the entire sector. For your safety, evacuate immediately via Al-Rashid Road to the humanitarian zone in Al-Mawasi. Staying in this area is extremely dangerous. I'll put an ellipsis here. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Bye, everyone.